Hello, my name is Alina Ardelanu. I am founding member of Financial Intelligence. I am glad to organize today an event regarding the Suez Canal incident. We have a lot of speakers today with us that will discuss the implications of this event on geopolitics. The host of the event will be Mr. Liviu Muresan, President of Eurisc, and he will conduct the discussions. Mr. Muresan, the virtual floor is yours. Please, I wish you a lot of success and have a great debate.
Thank you so much, first of all, inviting us. You as Financial Intelligence, well known for a lot of successful events in the very last period I had the privilege to be part of. And also congratulations for your excellent connections, not only in Romania, but also outside. And accepting the topic of our discussion, the Suez Canal incident. I want to thank so much our colleagues, friends, and personalities accepting such a short notice to be part of our event. I have to start with presentation which was made with the pictures presented already for you. First, it's Major General Carlos Branco, Senior Senior International Analyst with National Defense Institute in Portugal, for many years in a NATO representative and different command position in Portugal, and now very well connected to different international events. I discovered that you already had a presentation not time ago in Valdai Club, so you have given them some indication how to proceed with the sensitive topics on climate change and defense and so on. So, thank you so much for cooperating in the international projects, not only Romania, but also in this part of Europe. I want to go to Flavius CABA Maria. You know our colleague from our previous events. He's a president of MEPEI Institute. It's the most important and institute dealing with Middle East, not only Romania, but in the region. Flavius is currently invited to international events abroad, presenting the importance of MENA, Middle East, and maybe you can tell us also about your also projects in this field. Nothing it's possible to be discussed without Middle East. So thank you, Flavius, accepting to come and all the effort you made to be with us in this moment. Then, according to the presentation, Dr. Alexandru GEORGESCU, Critical Infrastructure International Expert, ICI, Romania. Thank you so much, Alex, being with us. You are very well connected to all these working groups in not only Romania, but also in Europe, European Space Agency, European Defense Agency, and so on. And thank you accepting to contribute to our discussion. Then it's Professor Adrian Gheorghe, Old Dominion University, Norfolk, Virginia, very well known, not only in the States, in Romania, but also internationally, with a lot of international activities in dozens of countries, universities, studies, and so on. And thank you so much accepting to be an early bird with us due to the time difference. Okay, then I have here on my list Major General Corneliu PIVARIU, he is well known not only in Romania, but also abroad as international analyst, publishing currently in prestigious publications. His tremendous experience in the field of intelligence. He was head of military intelligence in Romania, and excellent connections with colleagues from Western Europe. It's a real pleasure and honor having you with us, General PIVARIU. Thank you. Also, you had the chance to be for many, many years publisher of prestigious publication on geopolitics. Thank you. Then we have Professor Gabriel RAICU, Vice Rector from Maritime University, Constanta, and also part of international projects. And as you know, as we discovered that he is also working with in certain projects, not only with our colleague Dr. GEORGESCU, but Professor Adrian Gheorghe with NATO projects and so on. So thank you so much accepting to be with us. And Dr. Ralph THIELE, President of EURODEFENSE Germany, and also making very important research in the civil and military field, and very active contribution for European defense and European Defense Network we are part of. Thank you so much accepting to be with us. So we can start. I want to invite you to stick to the 7 minutes, because we are trying to control not only the time, but also to give the chance to answer to some questions we are receiving on chat. So why we have chosen the subject? Because suddenly this black swan or gray rhino, we had this Suez Canal incident, and 90% of the international media and debates were much more connected with technical details. How many tons, the crew, 25 people from India, 220,000 containers, and so on. The problem, it's much more complex. It's not only an incident, but it's maybe an opening of a new chapter of the complexity and vulnerability of all this maritime construction, but also the need to look to the transportation and to the economic development as a system of systems. And maybe Professor Gheorghe will tell us something about the research and the developments in the state and on international level in this respect. And we are here also to discover that globalization is something we need. So it's not too much in accordance with the philosophy of the previous American president, but we discovered that supply chain is important, interconnectivity is important, and it's the way ahead. And we have already good signals also from the new administration in Washington and from Brussels that it's a desire of cooperation, and we have to look a little bit larger, the broad picture. So, and now I invite you to accept to start with the first speaker, Professor Adrian Gheorghe. You have the chance to be icebreaker, and you know how important the icebreakers are now, where is the opening of Arctic way from Shanghai to Rotterdam. So let's be the icebreaker of our discussion. You have the floor, Professor Gheorghe.
It is unexpected, you know, unexpectedly this technology didn't work. Unexpectedly, ever given had a problem since the Suez Canal. Nobody expected that. All those things, as you discussed before, like black swans and now gray rhino, it happens. So the questions and issues which are now floating around the idea of risk, vulnerability, resilience, fragility, perception, governance, they coexist right now in understanding this situation. And on the top of that, what the topic of this meeting is geopolitics. So I think that issues of systems, because in this case, many systems, they had to coexist. So they brought the idea of complexity. The complexity, it's an issue. I would say it is a new type of terrorist right now. It's an invisible terrorist, it's an intangible terrorist, so to speak, next to whatever we have other definition of terrorism. But the complexity now is becoming a serious issue, which maybe from now on, people, they have to address. So addressing this with the new tools from artificial intelligence, I think people will mention that, from object-oriented programming, from tools related to quantum computing and so on. So these are tools and things which now people are doing on the research table, but very soon they have to come into the attention of decision makers. So here in Norfolk, where I'm living and working, where I have many students from ACT, NATO organization. We have also students from also Norfolk dealing with maritime safety, and that things are approached. And just to be even more concrete, we won contracts with Naval Postgraduate School Monterrey, as well as Department of Defense, on supply chain and blockchain for resilient acquisition topic. So you can see we are involved in this, and I think that's an issue to be a lesson from the others. I think that through our previous participation in International Risk Governance Council, Dr. Muresan mentioned issues before. So we discussed at large this critical infrastructure issue, and together with our Japanese colleague, Norio Okada, we analyzed what it was called at that time, global critical infrastructure, with a case in study how to transport things from Osaka to Norfolk through various type of things, which then I think it was even discussed before. So I would say that on the top of natural hazards, we have to understand very soon it will be issues like probably, and it happens, this electromagnetic pulse, which can destroy navigation, cybernetic control, and that might lead even to a bigger confusion and things in the world, which then is just waiting to happen. Maybe it's a black swan. Maybe we don't know yet. We don't have it on the table because we don't want to hear about that. But as a black swan, maybe things are like any black swan from Australia or whatever it was. So finalizing things and things like this navigation things. One navigation, it is maritime navigation. Another one is by surface navigation. And the third one is navigation, digital navigation. So I think putting all this together, it's coming what is discussed now at the Belt and Road things. And even Chinese, they deal with Belt and Road. They have the idea of a green Belt and Road, blue Belt and Road, which is water. And of course, in order to manage such a complex, vast project is a digital Belt and Road. So I think all these things, they have to be treated and having in mind that complexity is a new terrorist agent, and then we have to see how to treat it, how to manage it, how to be a winner or a loser but rather be a winner and forget to be a loser. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these two interventions. One will be used for European edition and other one for Asian edition, because you are used to publish in different parts of the world. So thank you, Professor. Dr. THIELE, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
I'm kind of grateful about this incident in the Suez Canal. Why? In these times of digital transformation, we do comparatively hard to visualize or to imagine things that are going on, because the most people are linked to things they can see, hear, and taste, and feel. So this is what they look for, and everybody from us now has this choke point before his eyes. You can see the hundreds of tankers waiting to pass by. We all can see that. Actually, what we don't see so well are bits and bytes as they come up, for example, through updates like on Facebook, as you just said. One of the largest cyber attacks we had in the past couple of months in the US, actually was SolarWinds that came over, spilled over to a lot of security institutions here in Europe as well. And last week, again, we had some very large cyber attacks coming up, but nobody cares too much in the public, because you don't see the bits and bytes, you don't see immediately what's going on. And so to this end, this is a kind of eye-opener, what we have seen in Suez that shows us the complexity that Professor Gorge has talked about, that we need to be able to deal with. And while we are, let me just put this right away, while we are still struggling very much with the digital transformation as such, the next dinosaur, which is quantum, is coming across the house, across the corner. Actually, with quantum, you can see around corners. Quantum can be two places at the same time. So imagine how will we be able to manage complexity if we fail already in real life, like on the Suez, which obviously has been an accident, but which could also be an targeted incident in gray zone and hybrid operations. And this kind of disturbance, of falsification of lines of communication, disruption of information, all of this in principle is in front of us as in principle the boundaries between civil and military competition are fluid. We can see Russia and China and Iran. I promised you, Liviu, I would discuss that. We can see them integrate civil and military competition at every level, including the development of their international trade, investment, national technology base, political and diplomatic activities. Actually, right now, we are in a deep struggle with China about value chains and supply chains. Trump, in principle, was facing the problem. China, at the same time, was already building new international supply chains and lines of communication to have alternatives, actually, to move on with. And as in these times, actors strive to stick below the threshold of war. They look for all gray zone activities that in this complex world have a role. And when you look at that, you could talk, the Europeans are more or less fixed to a kind of chess game. So who is stronger, who makes this path, while we see in Asia more the go game that is trying to keep others from moving, get them stuck in certain positions. So we are dealing with this complexity in every way we have to deal with, about our living circumstances, about communication. 5G is one of these things. Do you still own your communication? Is it true what you hear and what you see? We know that there are more or less real-time fakes possible in videos as we speak. So is it true what we read, what we see, what we hear? Is it true we have to think about migration issues? We have to think about economic commodities moving on. So there are plenty of things that we have to struggle with. And I'm in a way pleased that the new US President Biden just issued a couple of days ago his interim national security strategic guidance, where he's pointing at a world at an inflection point, a moment of accelerating global challenges. And then he would highlight in principle that the world's leading powers are racing to develop and deploy emerging technologies that could shape everything from the economic and military balance among states to the future of work, wealth, and the way of life. So a lot of change going on. And as I said, this incident in SUEZ actually has shown to us how it looks like in the material world, while similar, perhaps even much more important things are happening in the virtual world. What to do about that? Actually, when you look at these new technologies, they provide us with a lot of possibilities. Modeling and simulation, for example, you can be sure that Chinese and Russian strategic players model our vulnerabilities, to include choke points like the Suez Channel. So the question comes, why don't we model our own vulnerabilities to be better able to deal with them? In principle, I think AI can help us with that, modeling and simulation, operations research, a lot of features. We are compelled to come up with better strategic foresight, where we are not surprised again and again by the pandemic, Corona, by the channel problem and Suez, by the financial crisis, but where we use these modern technologies to our advantage to be better prepared, and in fact then also to train dealing with these situations as they come up. And here I foresee, to come to a close, I foresee a world where we clearly have to cooperate with others, which would again include China, Russia, Iran, where we have to compete with others, and where we also have to stand up against others if it needs to be, because in the end, we want to protect our way of life, our human rights. We want to protect our democracies as they are, the civil rights that we have. So just cooperation is not good enough. Just competition is not good enough. We also have to stand up occasionally, and to find here the right strike, here the right balance is something we need to go for. And here again, the SUEZ incident is a vivid example what things can occur if you don't care in time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ralph, for your presentation and introducing also the geopolitical perspective, stressing the importance of Suez Canal, and also major vulnerability of our European Union, because we have this supply of goods and export of goods from European Union to Asia in a new dimension, and we hope this will be a topic to be discussed. It's not time enough to wait for a new Arctic connection between Europe and China over the northern part of Russian Federation and so on, or to wait to finish or to clarify the political aspects of different connections of highways, railways by Belt and Road Project and other bilateral or regional projects. It's a must. We need these alternatives, and excellent perspective will bring us Major General PIVARIU from his years of experience in geopolitics, civil and military perspective. General, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your nice words and introducing me. I am very honored to participate at this debate. And even it is not my main subject of expertise, I hope to give some idea which the participant will find interesting. First of all, I want to point out that the maritime transport represents the most important segment of the world total transport, as they cover, according to the latest data, 89.6% of the volume terms and 70.1% in terms of value of the global total. Moreover, they have the advantage of not only being cheaper, but also being less pollution per freight ton as compared to the other transport modality. Within this business, an important role is played by the mandatory passage points represented from east to west by the Strait of Malacca, the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb, the Suez Canal, Bosphorus, Gibraltar, the Panama Canal, and which we could add the Cape of Good Hope. The recent incident of 23 March, represented by the blockage of the Suez Canal, brought against to the international attention the issue of the safety of the maritime transport, especially at the mandatory passage point. The potential threat for the safety of transiting the Suez Canal are often emphasized as a result of materialization of certain adverse scenarios. Most often, played scenario refer to terrorist attack which could provoke major disruption in various fields, especially economic. The indigenous incident threats are not as attractive for the public opinion. Although the occurrence is more likely, such accidents are much less analyzed as far as the implications are concerned. So, going very short to geoeconomic safety aspects. Suez Canal in a nutshell, 12% of the global trade, 1 million of barrels of oil per day, 8% of the daily trade of liquefied natural gas, daily income, $14 to $15 million in the last year, 2019-2020, $5.7 billion for Egypt. Before the pandemic, Suez Canal transit represent 2% of Egypt GDP. 90,000 ships transited the channel in 2019, more than 50 ships per day. The recent incident provoked an agglomeration of more than 360 ships until the canal returned back to transit, and the value of the block freight was estimated to be over $10 million. The German insurance company Allianz estimates that the blockage of the Suez Canal could diminish the yearly global growth by 0.2 to 0.4%. The Wall Street Journal emphasized that as a result of whatever given incident, the cost of freight for the transportation ship between Asia and the Middle East increased by 47%, mainly due to attempt to rerouting the ship in order to avoid the Suez Canal. This means more 8 navigation days. Yet, the temporary blockage of Suez Canal affects not only the global maritime industry or the Egyptian economy, but also innumerable other companies, corporate and retail end user of transport services. It is likely that, having in mind the financial losses, the feasibility study for commission of North Route of maritime transport be speeded up, as is mentioned before. Although some experts say that is not feasible, and the Russia action of opening up the ice shelf with 3 submarines is more of a propaganda campaign than on an affordable possible solution. The maritime container shipment as part of the logistic global chain could add up to the already chaotic situation following the disruption generated by the pandemic. Few physical safety aspects. At the time of impact between the ever given trans-container and the shore of the canal, the wind speed was approximately 40 knots per hour. Is the possible that human piloting error or objective technical consideration be added to unfortunate weather condition? Credible sources maintain that the Suez is known also as a Marlboro country and suggest that presents are being given to the piloting people. The canal is vulnerable to possible obstruction caused by transiting ship, especially in 3 sectors. I suppose there are no. The canal is relatively vulnerable to terrorist action in the Suez Canal Bridge known area, known as Egyptian-Japanese Friendship Bridge, or in Alferdane Railway Bridge. Short aspects of military and operative intelligence security. The Suez Canal is one of the strongest defense strategical objectives in the world as part of the critical global transportation infrastructure. Few security events was witnessed so far. The most important was recorded in 2005 and 2009, which was quickly solved. The Third Egyptian Army and the Security Service have a mission securing the vessel safe passage and are controlling the vulnerability liable to be exploited by hostile forces. The combination of the integrated high technology equipments and the combination Army intelligence and security services secure an appropriate protection of the objective. The risk level generated by such a threat is equal for all vessels, yet the resultant effect differ from ship to ship, depending on factors such as the type of ship, the kind of goods, and even the owner nationality. Admiral retired and ex-James Stavridis' controversial idea of setting up an international body for security management of the strait and navigation channels start to make sense now. It makes sense too that the intelligence and the security service have and we will have a bigger responsibility in the future as a result of the fact that the even given giant ship, as you said before, is owned by a Japanese company, operated by a Taiwanese maritime shipping company, and managed by a German company registered in Panama. And for everything being easy to manage it, all 25 members of the crew are Indian nationality. Setting up alternative routes, as in 1960, United States submitted the idea of launching construction of other canal as alternative to Suez, and Turkey is to start construction in 2021 of Istanbul Canal. In our opinion, are solution but incomplete one. As is the case in all sectors, a greater concern for raising the education level could be a good solution, which unfortunately require a longer period of time. At the same time, a solution must be found for safer operation in an infrastructure sometime from the middle of the 19th century with the ship of the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, General. Bringing in our attention the dimension of this incident and also these implications for military and intelligence. And yes, it was a surprise that till now we don't had the terrorist attack or some of organized crime or piracy on this Suez Canal, but we have to take into account that we need weeks and months in a lot of ports to bring in a sort of normality the activity in the field of maritime transportation. So this invitation of sinking is unsinkable is still open. It was a basic idea also for organizing this event. So let me now to invite our colleague Flavius, CABA Maria, the president of MEPEI Institute, and with your experience on studies and working direct with the region, Flavius, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for inviting me to participate in this current and very well received debate related to the latest development in the Middle East. I would like to share a few thoughts about this event. The first one should be related exactly, I can say, to the problem with the vessel that is stuck in the canal, and the other one, the other issue is about the role of China. So far, we didn't discuss too much because on the same time was overlapping a very fruitful delegation from Chinese visiting a few countries in the Middle East exactly during this time. And the last one is about alternative routes, because other states, as Iran, propose already an alternative route to this channel, Suez Channel. So, firstly, I would like to stress that this event is a reminder of how vulnerable maritime transportation is to block choke points. This is the first issue. And I think there is a few errors here, not necessary, could be also technical, human errors, not necessary speaking about how Egyptian authority conduct the traffic or not. But I would like to stress that in the last couple of years, the vessel was developed larger and larger, but the equipment that are rule the vessel, they are still almost the same. In the last couple of years, we speak about 10,000 containers. Now you speak about 20,000 containers. So the development is not the same as with the techniques. As Professor Adrian Gheorghe mentioned something about critical infrastructure in that time, so that we should think about much more also here how this new type of vessels are developed in accordance with the new technology. Related to the traffic, maybe it's difficult even though for us to see what is the error, human error or natural problem, because that line channel, Suez Channel, is a straight one. It's it's less than 200 kilometers between Red Sea and Mediterranean Sea, but that is a straight one, and the vessel is going one after another one, but it's not so difficult to, if you respect all the traffics they are imposed, there is not so difficult to do it, because these types of navigation, when a ship is larger than a choke, there is happening also on different ports in the world. So it's not as much as difficult, but we can take in consideration this aspect. We should take in consideration this aspect. So until the Egyptian authority will finalize the investigation or the whole evaluation that incident, we'll see how we'll develop, but we should have different lessons learned from this part. I do not want to focus too much on economic figures. You know, there is a lot of economic figures. You can figure out more what is the losses of this incident and what is the not important necessary. If you use Africa, the most southern point, Cape of Good Hope, to use it and in order to transport the goods to Europe. That means three times more than as a distance than using channels Suez. So, but I would like also to speak about now about Iranian side, and the last point will be China. During this time, Iranian ambassador to Russia proposed activating a shipping line that pass through the Iranian territory. I do not know if that should to link north and south. And they said it's time for Iran to develop much more the links between Chabahar port, which is developed together with Indian side, to develop that port. This is a line of trade line using railways, long maybe around 7,000 kilometers. So now Iranian side proposed developing more this land route, but using Chabahar port, and also in the same time also discussing with Pakistani side, because they also use Gwadar port. In this case, you will avoid these two main checkpoints. The first one is Malacca. If you are transporting goods from China, if you use Gwadar, Pakistan port, you will avoid Malacca Strait. That is very important. It's the same as here as Suez Canal. And the second one is Chabahar port that is developing with the Indian side. So Iranian side already started to say it's needed to develop this route. And also the time to reach Europe, it's roughly 20 days, less than it's currently, even though using channel Suez. And also the cost is less with 30% than this current route. So other states is already think about to develop this route. On the same time, Turkey already they also announced they are eager to develop with Russia and Iran land routes to connect to China in order to avoid even Suez Channel. So that means these four main actors, as Turkey, Russia, Iran, and even though China, they are thinking about to develop more land routes to connect Europe, to connect East and West overland trade. Now moving a little bit on the third point to China, because I think China is very important on this geopolitical as an implication. Now Chinese said it's time to implement much more faster Belt and Road Initiative projects. That means to facilitate East-West overland trade in such a way that the global economy will finally reduce its dependence on choke points, as I already mentioned, Malacca Strait and Suez Canal. So you should see how Chinese will develop the whole strategy in the Middle East, because during the last visit of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang in Middle East, he paid official visit in 5 states as Turkey, Iran, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, and on a working visit in Oman. So besides this, China would like to play much more a greater role in the Middle East in the security, especially in the Gulf region, and with the 2 main purposes. The first one, it's securing oil facilities, and the second one, it's about shipping lines. China is very concerned about shipping lines.
Okay.
So with this issue, I would like also to conclude that you should follow the issue China, how it's engaging in the Middle East and how they will play in the near future. And I would like to say that Egypt is a part of Belt and Road, and China invests a lot in Egypt. Thank you very much.
Carlos Branco, who is representing, is coming from a country which has now the presidency of European Union for 6 months. So it's very important for us to have the perspective from this part of the Europe and also from Atlantic. You have the floor, General. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Actually, we are leading the EU after 3 months, so we still have 3 months to go. Let me tell you that I'm delighted and honored to participate in this discussion. This traffic jam at the Suez Canal requires indeed reflection and discussion. And I would like to congratulate you for this initiative. Actually, it deserves indeed to be debated and to be discussed, this topic. Well, so I would like in the 5 minutes given, then I knew after starting this session that I have 2 more minutes. So I will try to convey the major idea of this intervention, that I will approach the issue from a geostrategic perspective. Actually, this event raised more questions than answers. And as we all know, choke points are crucial to geopolitical thinking. And for military planners and the high-level strategists, choke points are always close to their mind. So the blockage of passage through this critical waterway for a couple of days created all the problems that we are all aware. So it's a gateway crossed by 12% of global trade. It is estimated that it is crossed by, let's put in these terms, 400 million trade per hour. Ships lining, queuing in a line are targets for a potential spike in piracy. Shipping rates for all tankers have nearly doubled. The rise of oil, the shipping lines face disruption and delays in supplying retail goods to consumers. We all know this. And many other economic and financial issues that we already mention in these debates. So we are aware of these drawbacks, but the Suez is open again for business. And in some ways, the damage is already done. But this was a short closure. And with this short closure, we saw the consequences, which are minimal comparing with the permanent closure. So this closure happened in a context of peace as a human error. But we have to make an exercise, at least a mental exercise, in case of crisis and war. If we have to face such a situation in a more damaging case, and if it was a terrorist attack. So after this, after the vulnerability shown, maybe this stimulates the terrorists to do something in Suez Canal. Well, in certain choke points. Well, these issues can occur again with different players. And from my perspective, I think now we should think beyond to forecast future situations and to be ready to provide fast responses. Well, I know it is difficult to forecast wildcards, but I believe this is an exercise that must be done. There are lessons to be learned, and one of the merits of these exercises is to try to extract lessons that we can use in the future. And this, for me, should be the focus of the debates. So after this, are we empowered with tools to react in a different way in the future? What to do in the next cases? And let me tell you, and I know this is a triviality because you will know the likelihood of being repeated cases like this is real. So we must consider that human constructed choke points are normally narrower and easier to block than natural ones because engineering is forced And normally it's created a passage of minimal width due to the tremendous amount of labor and cost that is necessary to build them. So it's a conjunction of engineering and money. And we also know that blocking maritime choke points is not difficult, even for insurgent groups. And I believe that one of the aspects where we should concentrate our attention in our responses is exactly to face this threat. And the Middle East, as you know, is a ground for these kind of activities. So, Suez Canal has demonstrated the fragility of man-made choke points. You know, mines, submarines, cruise missiles, and the like can effectively close off any choke point at any time. But in this case, I'm speaking mainly to more, more empowered enemies, adversaries, because I'm talking about mines, I'm talking about missiles, but there are other tools that can be used to block such an infrastructure with less resources. And it's not difficult. It's not technically difficult. Well, so, do you want to say something, Liviu?
No, I invite you, if it's possible, to have the concluding remarks.
Okay. Sorry.
This changes the program, please.
Okay. So I would like just to add two more things. Well, the Suez should remind us of our vulnerability, not to an accident, but also to the nature of war that humans have always in the horizon. In case of a terrorist attack, for instance, the Suez Canal is quite vulnerable, as are man-made choke points. So I believe that in mind you have others already. And in the debate, we could introduce what could be done by the EU in order to help Egypt, a sovereign nation, to avoid things of these sorts and neither to repeat nor to happen. I'm not patronizing, but for instance, of course, the EU could try to assist Egypt. I know this is an insufficient response, and we do not have response, but we have to think of this issue, especially to understand at what level these issues could be fast responded. This issue was already mentioned, addressed in a previous intervention, and what is supposed to deal with complexity. But there are similar problems to consider. We could also add in this debate the more complex Panama Canal. It's a subject of a similar problem, and other important choke points. Sorry for this.
Thank you so much. First, bringing in the discussion this military perspective, block ships and other different events which can occur in the field. In the same time, speaking about the role and the importance of Egypt for European Union, and they have a Egyptians have sort of memory with the Suez Canal events with the regional big powers. So there are some opportunities for the newcomers like China to have better relations with Egypt, but European Union must focus on Egypt. So may I invite now, thank you so much, may I invite now Professor Gabriel RAICU. He's a Vice Rector of Maritime University Constanta, and we are very interested to listen to your presentation, Professor. You have the floor, please, 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to be very brief in my presentation because a lot of interesting things already was spoken in this meeting today. Why is the Suez Canal so important? Because about 12% of global trade passes through the almost 120 miles channel, which connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea and provides the shortest link between Asia and Europe. If this channel is cut down, we can take in considerations at least 2 weeks more in navigation area principle. That could lead to at least $9.6 billion of goods each day, around 400 million per hour in losses, for example, which is tremendously high. In this time with increased digitalization, naval systems face a range of threats requiring evaluation of cybersecurity risk and proper countermeasures. Here was not directly related to cybersecurity or to common modern kind of security issues, but was related, at least at this point of analysis, to a complexity and a complex matter of errors, of accumulation of errors. Protection and responses have had limited efficiency in this time, requiring new approaches and maybe a greater adaptability to meet the evolutionary threats in the maritime field. There is a need for new security approaches to detect and prevent threats while building protections against logistic chain attacks, for example. Transport operations and inland activity could be further exploited against different kinds of attacks, including here a modern kind of attacks, including cascading effects in the transport security field. The lack of methods to deal in the pandemic time has led to additional logistic complication with the risk of generating either efficiency or security problems. This type of logistical provocation has various effects in time. Some of them need to be investigated and deeply understood, as older technologies in legacy systems were deployed when actual requirements in maritime and in common modern transport field of activity was not part of the technical specification in the system design at their construction time. In this introductory part, I want to say something about our university profile, because I think it is important to know how the educators in the maritime education training field address this kind of problems. For example, we are starting in last 5 years to design a new approach in good cooperation with IMO requirements. IMO is the International Maritime Organization. We start to organize a different interaction with this organization and with subsequent partners in order to enhance the maritime security, but also the transport security and in the end, the global security. For this, we invested heavily, around 7% of our global investigation funds, in order to be able to find the proper way to address this kind of problems. Well, but if we want to return to the more focused events, we can pinpoint here an initial facts in this accident, in this incident, in fact. As you already know, the complexity of operation of this kind of vessel are tremendously big, because they are owned by someone, operated by another one, and managed by a third party. This kind of activity in global transportation today make the rescue things and recovery operations a little bit complicated. Not complicated in terms of operational things in channel area, but in terms of incident study and the lesson learned in the future. There are a lot of backup plans, for example, in such kind of incidents. We can partially discharge, we can transfer the goods from one ship to another, but this kind of transportation takes a lot of time. We can operate, we can wait to increase the sea level and so on. But none of these methods are proper and are well suited for a normal case.
If it's possible, Professor, to have the last minute.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Starting with this kind of incidents, we can think about another critical areas around the globe. You can see here only a few of them. In reality, there are many, because no dangers are narrowed, can be narrowed around one strait and on one channel, because they are interlinked together. You can see here a lot of interesting things. The Suez Canal blockage can lead to a great modification in maritime roads. If we can imagine some blocking in Panama Channel, also will lead to different modification in the global trade. I will try to make just in time at this moment a sort of interaction, a live interaction, right in the Suez Channel, for example, in order to see what are the situation right now. We can observe here a very concentrated group of ships which are waiting for the channel to operate normally, because despite the unblocked ship, the normal operation in this channel area are not easily restored. It will take around 6 days maybe to attend the normal operation influx. Well, we can raise here a lot of questions. We can bring here a lot of problems, but anyhow, I promise in the beginning try to be brief. If there are some questions or some comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are receiving meanwhile some questions, some comments. So it is not possible to speak about geopolitics, about maritime security without maps. And thank you so much for bringing the maps, and also with very inspiring dots, of course, with the ships moving or ships in waiting. Last but not least, thank you so much, Professor. And last but not least, we have our colleague, Dr. Alexandru GEORGESCU, who is now with us and have some final remarks to our discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. GEORGESCU.
Thank you very much. I want to say that this incident in the Suez Canal is viewed as some sort of incident which is out of the normal way of how things are done. But in practice, the global supply and production chain is extremely vulnerable. The experts say that the incident in the Suez Canal could have been much worse. For instance, the collision could have taken place upriver towards the Suez port, where the banks are not made of sand but of rock, and could have damaged the ship. It could have taken place in November or December, when, because of the holiday seasons, the maritime transport picks up even more, and at the same time there are worse weather conditions. But I would like to point out the fact that the incident now in the Suez Canal is not the only incident affecting the global supply and production chain today. We have multiple incidents at the same time all over the world affecting a system which more and more seems to be very fragile. And I will give just a few examples. For instance, ever since the winter wave in the United States, especially in Texas, there has been a problem with the supply of plastics and resins in the world, affecting producers in many countries, especially in the US, which rely on plastic supplies. So that is also a problem of supply and of transport. At the same time, we have seen that there is a semiconductor shortage because of the rebound in the production of automobiles. And prior to that, the fabricators of semiconductors had oriented themselves towards other markets. And we see that Toyota, that Volkswagen, Fiat Chrysler have had to reduce production or to shift production because they could not get enough semiconductors to produce the automobiles. At the same time, another very interesting phenomenon, because of the pandemic, the global supply system has become much more inefficient. For one thing, there was a rebound in consumption, while at the same time, the pattern of consumption has changed. This means that there was more and more pressure on the existing supply chain. The factories in China had to produce more and deliver more. This has led to situations where in the United States, the lead times to wait for merchandise from China to arrive to the United States has gone from 30 days or a few weeks to more than 2 months. It is a veritable shortage of container space. Why? Because the Chinese are paying a premium to get containers coming back even empty towards China so they can export their goods. And this has caused a crisis in the capacity of the transport of other goods, including foodstuffs, to markets around the world. At the same time, also because of the pandemic, there is a problem with offloading ships in ports. There is a problem with having enough trucking capacity in order to move the containers. For one of these huge container ships, you need 8,000 trucks just to be able, movements just to be able to offload them. So this means that at every step of the way in the supply and production chain worldwide, we can see stressors appearing here and there. And when these stressors align, we can see a very, very big incident. One of these stressors took place in the Suez Canal, where 13% of global trade takes place. It goes through that canal. And because of the plans of the Egyptian authorities to widen the canal, its capacity is predicted to double by 2023 compared to 2014. So this is very interesting. And in the area of critical infrastructure protection, we work with a concept called normal accidents. These are accidents that take place because of the inherent complexity and fragility and the couplings of an infrastructure system. What happened in the Suez Canal, although regrettable, is not a one-in-a-lifetime chance or something extraordinary. It is something that we would classify as a normal accident, something that you would expect would happen. And if this takes place, as Professor RAICU also said, if this takes place in multiple areas at the same time, if there is an effect in one part of the world affecting the other part of the world, we can have significant damages. And this is because more and more we have become dependent on not just on the global production and supply chains, but on 100% functioning global production and supply chains. Why? Because we are dependent on just-in-time inventory management to reduce the costs of holding stock. So this means that companies do not have enough parts on hand to continue production if deliveries are curtailed for a week or two. They do not have enough merchandise to satisfy their current customers for the next week or two. Why? Because this entails a cost. So I believe that this incident in the Suez Canal Canal should be a wake-up call towards the idea that we need to analyze that we need to understand the threats coming not just from hackers or from state agents, but the threats stemming from the complexity of the system itself, and moving from there to include the security considerations into the business calculations of the companies and of the private sector in general. Otherwise, we will find out what it means not just to not have enough plastics or to not have enough goods to sell. We might find out what it means to not have enough pharmaceutical products, to not have enough foodstuffs, or to not have enough energy. Thank you very much.
Oh, Dr. Georgescu, thank you so much for your final presentation and connecting the dots with different informations. And so you mentioned that it's a normal incident, but due to these excellent speakers, we have to understand it's not a normal incident, but it's an exceptional discussion we had due to the interventions of the speakers. So we have some questions to our colleagues. I wonder if Carlos succeed to receive the message to say something, and then to have to try to have the final remarks to use our time as we promised. Thank you, General Carlos Branco. You have the floor. Thank you.
Yes, I will be concise and very fast in the answer. To the first question, I don't know if everyone has access to the questions, but basically, if it's not the case, I was asked if this incident will trigger the development of other canals as the one in Thailand and so on and so forth. So my answer, simple answer is yes, not trigger, but it can inspire insurgent or terrorist groups. And in a time of peace, these are the most important threats. My answer to the second question, SUEZ is more important for the EU than other routes. Makes sense to participate to a joint venture for doubling the Suez Canal. Well, yes, makes sense. Some choke points are easier to block than others. So attention should be oriented for the most vulnerable. Suez Canal is particularly important to Europe and vulnerable. So Europeans or Europe have to deal with it in a very special way, as suggested in this discussion. Egypt still have in memory the 1956-57 events. So this is a drawback, a problem, but the EU has to deal with it. This is my answer.
Thank you so much. We are now coming close to our to the last minutes of finishing our discussion, and I understand I have not more received any messages here on chat or something like that. So I just want to add something I discovered in the last days looking after this all these comments about the event in Suez Canal. It was stressed in different parts of the world the importance of the initiative of Belt and Road, with all the aspects: railroad, highways, maritime. And so looking for alternative solutions, and at the intercontinental scale, we discovered the vulnerability not only of Europe, but in general of the world economy. And a project like Belt and Road is not the only one, but now it's an important one. And some days ago, Council on Foreign Relations just finished a study about this Belt and Road idea. And I just want to mention, to quote the last sentence: the United States needs a smart, tailored response to recognize Belt and Road initiative is there to stay, and also albeit in a different form. So I think that any kind of initiative in other parts of the world to look to Panama, to look to other developments, Arctic must be in our attention, and not confrontation, but cooperation. So we are here running out of time. If somebody else wants to say something, I think that the organizers want to say something. So Adina, you have the floor. Thank you so much for all the speakers, for your effort made to be with us, for the intervention. We hope that we present some aspect of some lessons learned, and we will integrate in our activities, each of us in our countries, in our institutions, in our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muresan, for conducting this very interesting discussion today. I would also like to thank all the speakers for sharing their views and also their solutions for this situation. Thank you everybody that watched the event today. We are sorry for the slight technical problem, but we resumed the transmission and continue the discussion. Also, many thanks to our partners for this event, MEPEI Institute Romania, Eurisc Foundation, and ICI Romania, institutional partners, ICSS, media partners, Ager Press, România Durabilă, Economistul, Club Economic, The Diplomat, New Money, Busy Life TV, and for the transmission, many thanks to Buf Media. Have a nice day, and please follow us on financialintelligence.ro on Facebook and YouTube. All the best.
All the best.